We thought the Democrats were obsessed with President Trump, but Justice Thomas is a close second. This bill is simply the latest installment of the Democrats' campaign to delegitimize and attempt to intimidate the United States Supreme Court.
The Democrats don't have to do anything to delegitimize the Supreme Court. They did it all on their own by making fundamentalist religious values the law of the land. Now that the Democrats have finally clued into the fact that what Republicans have been openly working towards for decades is happening, they're trying to cement into law the rights people have had for years before they, too, are stripped away. This is Rebel HQ. I'm Sandee Lovas. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, the Democrats looked over at the Republicans and said, "How could you do that? I thought we were friends. I didn't know you meant all of those horrible things you were saying." I guess you can just never know what's in a person's mind. Republicans like Jim Jordan are grasping at arguments against codifying marriage equality because they know if it isn't, the rights of queer folks will be taken away and they don't want to acknowledge that's the goal. Not surprising, Jim Jordan's stance, given he's known for looking the other way when rights are being violated. But the Democrats aren't putting their faith in the Supreme Court doing the right thing because, well, there's this saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Oh, sorry, I said that in Canadian. Allow me to translate to American so you can understand. Fooled me once, shame on you. Fool me, you can't get fooled again. Since seeing is believing, the Democrats are desperately trying to codify marriage equality before the states run by religious extremists take away the right for gay folks to marry. What's being overlooked is how far gone the Supreme Court is. When Democrats are aware that in order to protect the rights of Americans, they need to do their job, you know it's bad.
And so this is about a fundamental fairness in our system, ensuring that people can marry the person they love. And if it's not necessary, then vote for it. If you're right that we're worried and we shouldn't be, reaffirm it. But don't hide behind that to justify your refusal to vote for marriage equality in this country, that every single American has a right to marry the person they love.
But because the vast majority of the country supports marriage equality, Republicans are having to make this about anything else to hide. They're trying to push their bigoted views onto the entire population.
We've had opinions that deal with marriage. Now, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to put forward a bill that is clearly political in nature. They don't want to talk about inflation. They don't want to talk about wide open borders. They don't want to talk about rampant crime. They don't want to talk about the state of this country in decline, heading into a recession, where people are hurting across the country. They don't want to talk about that. So they bring forward a political bill.
So you're trying to tell me, just let me get this straight. I want to make sense of this. You're trying to tell me that passing a bill in Parliament that's being voted on by Democrats and Republicans, that shouldn't be political. That shouldn't be something that is political. It's just a bill. It's an opinion. That's what you're trying to tell me, huh? Not only is Chip Roy trying to deflect the conversation away from how much they want to remove people's rights, whenever the issues he just mentioned are brought up, Republicans deflect from talking about them in any meaningful way. Because they're hateful cowards. They can't stand the thought of living in a country where they aren't part of the small ruling class. They know that if everyone had an equal playing field, they'd be on the sidelines because they have nothing to offer. The country they're trying to build reflects their hatred of LGBTQ+ folks, poor people, people with disabilities, Black, Brown, and Indigenous peoples, women, and anyone else who disagrees with them. Working for generations to gain rights, only for religious extremists to take them away the first chance they get, is brutally cruel. But Republicans don't care, so long as they remain on top. I feel people need a reminder as to what this is really about.
I still remember where I was on June 24th, 2011, the day the New York State Legislature passed marriage equality. I was living with my friends in New York City, but I was still closeted. And I was so afraid still that someone might find out the truth about my being gay. So instead, I closed the door to my room and cried tears of joy by my lonesome. Finally, my home state of New York had recognized me as a full human being, affirmed all of those scary yet beautiful feelings that I had bottled up inside for decades, wondering, hoping one day that the world would change. 4 years later, the Supreme Court's decision and Obergefell sent this same message to millions of LGBTQ plus Americans.
For more of my stuff, look for me on social medias left of the box. Don't forget to hit buttons and leave comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time, get informed, get involved.